fucking people shouldn't be allowed in this goddamn country, rah, rah, rah. And the lady says, wait, what's your beef with this lady? Said, Muslims. They said, are you a Christian? Yeah. Well, it says, love thy neighbor. Love that. The lady told her, love that. Well, you know what that is? And dude left. You know, because see, that's what I'm talking about. What's good for me is not good for you. And that's what they're saying. What's good for me is not good for you. You know, that's why folks are calling the police on black folks for barbecuing in the park and shit. Oh, you know, just picking up the phone, calling the cops.
I think behaviorally, there's a big sunk cost fallacy that happens with religious people. So the sunk cost fallacy,
I was going to say, please.
Is the idea. So have you ever been like in a line, you've been waiting in that line for a long time, and then another line opens up, and you have the choice, do I go to that other line and go faster, or do I stay in this line because I've been in this line for a long time? I feel like I've earned this place in line. And behaviorally, there is a lot of people will choose to stay in the same line that they've been waiting in, or let's say you've made an investment and you've poured, $100,000 into something, and it looks like it's going to go poorly, but you're like, well, I already put so much into it, I'm just going to stick to it. Right. Wrong, right? In economics, we call it the sunk cost fallacy. You should be looking at the whatever is going to happen from now forward, not at all the crap that you've already sunk into it, because that's gone and it doesn't matter anymore. Right. And I think that happens to people who are religious, because if you start to undermine their beliefs today in the moment, if you tell them, hey, Republicans are wrong about this one little thing, that means they have to question every other decision they've made in their life, whether it's to save their virginity for marriage, or it's going to a Christian college, or spending years in missionary service trying to convert people in Brazil, or staying in a horrible marriage, or keeping a baby that they didn't want to have, but they kept it anyway because they were doing the right thing at the time.
So they thought.
They've made all of these decisions in their life up to this point, and so you undermine their political belief at this level. You undermine their entire identity. Right.
And I think it's not just with religion. We're seeing that same, and it's been. I don't know if you watched Bill Maher last night, but he was talking about Trump's whole cult of personality. But I think it's the same thing with the Republicans, who, for years, have been letting the more extreme elements of their party drag them further into the mud. And now that, if I can borrow another phrase, now that their chickens have come home to roost, they know they're in a horrible, horrible situation, but to save face, or for whatever reason, they would rather talk about how great the mud is. Right. Then get themselves back onto the land.
Well, that's like remember inversion surgery? They were telling the transgendered people or the gay people that you had to, they can convert you.
Oh, conversion therapy.
Conversion. Yeah, therapy. And they wanted them to be, said, well, we can send you through therapy.
We can pray away the gay, and if that doesn't work, there's always electrical shocks.
Yeah. And these people went through this, and it's like, no, dude, be happy with who you are. Because someone in the group is saying, you need to be more like us. And it's like, that has always been the battle. And I always tell people, do you actually think the iPhone could have been created if Steve Jobs thought like everybody else? It's the only way things get created. Only way people, you have to think differently from someone else. Steve Jobs did not think like the average. He was a horrible father. You can call him a prick. You can call him whatever you want. But in order to create this damn thing here, he's
holding up an iPhone.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ himself, since we're on the topic of the Bible and Christianity, he thought differently from other people. He was different, and he was breaking laws. He was breaking Jewish laws. That's different. Quite
well, but they were the laws of the land at the time, so
and he was still
counts.
Put to death in some way by Pontius Pilate. He was killed by the government for breaking a law. I want to say it was like inciting rebellion or just whatever.
Well, they didn't want to kill him.
But they let the people.
But it was the Sanhedrin who wanted to have him done.
But the government.
But you know what?
The Sanhedrin had cut a deal because they look. Either you do or either you don't. hey, we want to stop this and we want to control it.
You know what though, and I mean, I've heard that story for years, and especially from people who, hey, your people killed our God. No, I know you're not going there. But you hear it enough, and I think it's. Especially in the current context, and this is not something I've been thinking, this just hit me as I'm listening to you say this. That sounds so much like Trump blaming the Democrats for separating children from their parents. Right. It's, these are the Democrat laws. We don't want to do them, but we have to. You know what? If we're following all of the laws, even the ones that we don't want to, I believe shortly after he was brought in as the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions changed the laws regarding asset forfeiture for people who are under investigation.
He said
for high crimes.
He recused himself. He took himself.
Well, yeah, no. That was from the Russia investigation. This is for general criminals that, if you're even just under investigation, not once you've been convicted, if you're under investigation, the government can come and take all of your shit because it's probably, and we'll see what happens with the investigation, but it is probably the result of illegal actions. So we're just going to take all of your stuff and we're going to hang on to it.
Right.
I don't, we have the New York Attorney Office is investigating the Trump Foundation. Right. There are so many lawsuits and investigations regarding
the charities.
Well, the emoluments clause.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And going against those laws. There is so much that Donald Trump, the Trump Organization, and the Trump Foundation are under investigation for. Right. If we're going to enforce the laws, even the ones that we don't want to, that is a great place to start.
Well, but I was going to say, along with the thing with the Sanhedrin, I was going to say that the Christians, it would be like Christianity today and being the government. Okay, basically, and it's almost like the Pope. It's just like the Pope when the Pope hooked up with and was the reason why priests are not allowed to marry today is because they used to be able to marry, but because when they would die, they would leave the land to the wife, and so they stopped all that. Or if there was a divorce, the wife got a cut. So they didn't want her to have anything anymore. So they changed the law, and so all priests would become. They had to be celibate.
Thank God. I thought it was because of that whole spare the rod, spoil the child thing, and wives just weren't down with the priest doing that. They were just getting too much.
God.
I
mean, they were
just getting too much. But I'm just saying, if you want to use, there's always been within our past that religion and government eventually become teams, and I wouldn't be surprised with, hey, that guy's a problem. You want to stop this? Get rid of him. We don't want shit to do with him. Hey, blah blah blah. Because as long as he denounced Caesar. Oh, he did he? Okay. So basically, they wanted to curb the problem because the only other group at that particular time was Gnostics, and the Gnostics were basically all about knowledge.
The Gnostics,
like hippies,
they were like the guys who were tripping acid and smoking weed off in the high school parking lot.
Yeah, but they were. I mean, there were so many different Christian sects that's why Constantine had to do what he did and say, okay, we need one Christian group.
But my point was more that, Jesus was the guy who was sort of breaking the laws. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been the Romans nailing the hammer. Because say what you will about the Sanhedrin, about the Jews, the Romans were the ones nailing the hammer.
Oh, sure.
Bada bing.
Well, the reason why they did that is because that was to get you to conform. That's why they had 6,000 Spartans when they defeated the Spartans. They put them all up on those damn crosses. And they weren't nailing them because I guess they recently found a guy who had a hole in his ankle that they said that really they used to just tie him with rope and you really couldn't die that way. You actually died from suffocation because your arms were above your head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to show
and then at the end they go by with a spear and they
jab you in the
side just to make sure.
As my old friend from college, Boone Stiegel, often comments on my suppositions on Facebook. Don't give them any ideas. I think maybe now, like taking that into consideration, we should probably be glad that Donald Trump hasn't read the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Pontius Pilate, great guy, really knew how to deal with trouble. Pontius Pilate, very smart guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of smart, great people and only hiring the best people, we are almost running out of time, but I do want to end the show on a good note. So the week did begin with international catastrophes ranging from the G6+1 to our president kowtowing to a murderous dictator. But the week ended with Paul Manafort going to jail. Paul Manafort, the low-level coffee boy who actually was also the campaign chairman for the Donald Trump for president campaign in 2016 for, I believe, 140 some odd days, not the 30 whatever that the president would have you believe. But if you haven't been following the story, Manafort got caught up in the Mueller investigation because he had basically been illegally lobbying for the Ukrainian government on American soil without registering as a foreign lobbyist, which is a big no-no. And he was working with a lot of pro-Russian people, strangely enough, at the same time that he was working as the campaign chairman for Donald Trump. At the same time, he was in that strange meeting that was just about adoption until it wasn't just about adoption with the Russian lawyers, the other KGB tools, the Trump boys. The guy's going to jail. Well, he is currently in jail. He was sent to jail this week because he was accused of witness tampering. He was trying to suborn perjury from some of the witnesses in this case against him on the illegal lobbying. So the judge basically said, you're a grown man. I can't take away your phone, so you're going to jail where nobody gets phones. And there's still
I hope he really said that. Did he really say that?
Yeah, she.
She?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm paraphrasing, but yes, there was the I can't take away your phone, so to the hooskow with you. And again, paraphrasing on hooskow, it's just such a great word. It needs to be used more. So I'm bringing hooskow back. But there is, strangely enough, speculation as to whether Manafort is going to flip on Trump. And I do not know this because I do not have sources in the White House, but I guarantee you that as soon as Manafort was sent to jail, Trump was asking someone, how do we make this look like a suicide? Suicide, questionable suicide in jail, not just for black women anymore. But I don't think Paul Manafort should kill himself. He's 72 years old. It's not like he's going to have that long to live in jail. But just in case he's thinking about sticking with Donald Trump, despite the fact that he has been thrown under the bus by Donald Trump, I think we need to help encourage him. And I was trying to think of the best way to do that. How to convince Manafort to flip.
Wow.
So I don't want to call it a charity. It's just in its nascent form, so we can't call it a movement. But whatever you want to call it, I want to call it Spatulas for Manafort. And we'll put this up on our Facebook page and on the webisode, the podcast page. But Paul Manafort is staying as a guest of the Northern Neck Regional Jail at 3908 Richmond Road in Warsaw, Virginia, 22572. So if you're by the 99-cent store, or if you feel like going full-on Crate and Barrel, stop on in, pick up a spatula, and send it to Paul Manafort, care of the Northern Neck Regional Jail at 3908 Richmond Road, Warsaw, Virginia, 22572. You'll be glad you did.
To encourage him to flip.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. And if you go, you know what? Buy multiple spatulas because you're going to need to send one to Michael Cohn pretty soon.
But Rachel Maddow did you saw on her show?
No,
Rachel Maddow did a breakdown of the Nixon situation as